Chaim Holtjer is with us here today. How are you doing?
Hello, doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great as well. Now, you've got a novel which you've been working on called The Melding. So, can you just describe the basic idea of what's going on in that book, first of all?
Yeah, so in the book I'm still currently working on, and though it's not completely done yet,
Yeah.
it's due out at the end of the year. Um, the setting is basically what the title is already. It's the melding, which is sort of short for amalgamation, things that blend into each other.
Mm.
And this is what the setting is. It's a fantasy story in a world that's constantly changing, so
Mm.
constantly in flux. So everybody living, breathing in that world, don't know when the world is going to act up again. So that's you can imagine quite something to deal with.
Yeah. And because you're in the process of writing it at the moment, do you find that the story itself is constantly changing?
Oh, absolutely. That's also always
Yeah.
part of writing a story. I mean, you can plot
Mm.
in advance what you want. In the end, the story will do what it wants itself. So I've got everything written out as how it should be according to my plan, but it's probably
Yeah.
going to change at some point. And
Yeah.
you never know. Sometimes a character just pops up and you didn't know he was going to be there, but he is.
Mm.
And in the end, turns out to be crucial for the stories.
Yeah. So, what gave you the idea to write this book in the first place then?
Well, well, that's a good question. Is where do ideas come from? Really, sometimes it just pops in your head. It's a combination of what I've written, what I've read somewhere, what somebody's spoken to me about, and
Yeah.
contacts, history, something I learned when I was 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about interesting settings. Really, I mean, I've been dabbling with writing short stories mainly, and
Yeah.
some attempts at novels in the past. And then sort of your writing, your pen grows as you try it more and more. And I
Mhm.
think this was an idea. I thought, right, I can make a novel out of this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And because we're in a pandemic at the moment, we've been staying
Mhm.
at home a lot this past year. So have you found that you've had a little bit more time to focus on writing the book than you otherwise would have?
Oh, absolutely, without any question. I mean, I'm
Mm.
doing home office. I've been doing for 1.5 years now,
Yeah.
almost. Um, it means I don't have to drive to work. So in
Yeah.
the morning, I can get up right 10 minutes before my shift starts technically, and
Mm.
that's working. I don't have to commute for an hour or more.
Yeah.
Same in the afternoon, which is usually even longer due to traffic. Nothing
Yeah.
of the sort. So it's 2 hours extra in a day there, right there. So,
Yeah, that's true.
and yeah, it gives you a bit more wiggle room as well to instead of staring into the void at your screen at the office, you can just walk around your home and do something for yourself to get re-energized.
Yeah, there's the extra time, and also, depending on how you get to work, you save a lot of money on fuel. But then I suppose there's the other fuel you have to pay for in the winter. If you're staying at home, you need heating, I suppose.
Coffee as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Also very important fuel,
You don't get the office coffee, you have to buy your own.
which is usually an improvement.
Yeah. Well, is it quite challenging to create a fictional world that's different from the one that we actually live in?
It's people think maybe that writing fantasy is easy. It's the easy way out because you can make up anything, right? Anything goes,
Yeah,
right? That's what
yeah,
fantasy allows you to do. But actually, it makes it harder because
yeah,
uh, everything that we take for granted in this world has an history. I mean, I'm probably a bit more focused on it because I studied history back in the days, but every single word we use and the phrases of expression, they all have a history. They come from somewhere. So if you don't have that to build on, then you have to build that history, build the cultures, build the
yeah,
habits, build it yourself. And if you want to make the world believable, you have to put these little things in, the things that
yeah,
make it unique. And then you have to be consistent because you make it up, but you have to also remember it somehow. So that's
yeah.
that's a challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of actors and authors and just creative people in general that create backstories to their worlds and their characters that you never need most of the time, but it just adds a sort of dimension to it and makes the character more believable in a way that's hard to describe. But I guess for a lot of people, it helps them as a writer or actor have a better idea of the
It's absolutely
world.
necessary to do, because you have to, before you start writing, you have to understand the world and the characters yourself.
Yeah.
And the way I do it, I write excessive amounts of backstory and world building content that would be incredibly dull for anyone to read. So it's unless you want to do have 5 chapters of exposition describing landscapes, I don't think anyone wants to read that. Not even Tolkien would like that. I mean, that's just for yourself to understand what you're writing about, who you're writing about, where they're coming from. Also, the antagonists, by the way. I mean, focusing on the hero is important, but understanding what the bad guys are doing and why they do this is also important.
Yeah.
And with the setting of a world that changes, I mean, then you have to see, why does it change? I mean, the characters in the world don't know it, but I have to know. That's also something I have to figure out and write about. So I've got more pieces of backstory written than the actual story is going to be long. But
Yeah. It's interesting because, as you say, it's a lot more work to come up with your own world, and I suppose the easiest thing to do is just to copy this world that we're in. So it's interesting that a lot of people think that making a whole new world is easy.
yeah, it's not. If you want to be original about it and believable and consistent, but interesting, then it's definitely not easy. Of course, you look around, you take examples from the real world as prompts or as points of interest, but then you have to give it a twist. I mean, you can copy paste it and change the name, but then everybody who has some form of education, they will know it, and then I don't think that will be terribly interesting to read that. No. So you have to be a bit clever about it and make it your own, really.
Yeah, that's for sure. And how does writing a novel compare to writing kind of shorter works of fiction then?
It's for writing short stories, what I tend to do is I just need one idea and I write about it, because that's technically just one story arc. It's something happens, the character tries to figure it out, and either he succeeds or he fails. That's a short story. You don't even have to have an ending. You can end with a nice cliffhanger. With a story of 100,000 words, like 400 pages approximately, you need a bit of planning. You need an idea for sure to start, but then when it fizzles out, you're not even halfway through the novel. So you have to make story arcs and make it blend into each other, and also keep track of everything you wrote so you don't forget about a storyline somewhere. Else you have open endings and missing plot lines. You don't want that. So there's a lot more planning involved, and also takes more time. Of course, a short story you can write in a day or two, maybe one day if you're really if you're really on fire. But a novel you can't write in one sitting. You have to do it over a series of days, weeks, months even, and hope your inspiration doesn't leave you. Or if you get stuck, figure out where did I write something wrong to and how can I get myself unstuck. It's way more planning involved. It's comparing helping out your uncle lifting bricks or being a construction worker. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah, I suppose it's good that you're aware of that, because sometimes you see full novels or full feature-length films that would actually be better suited as a short story or short film, and it seems like somebody's just been a bit too ambitious with a simple idea.
One maybe about children's books, something like that.
Yeah. So it's good that you're sort of aware that a short story needs to be short.
You need to have plenty of content to keep a long story interesting, else it should be not a long story but a short one, and it should be interesting, and it should have somewhere to go and not just idly maneuvers into randomness. That's not going to be interesting to read. So lots of planning, and of course in the end it have to prove itself if it's actually up to what I plan to do, what I hope to do, which is entertain readers. I mean, in the end the readers will have to be the judge of that, but at least I'm trying to be aware of keeping it interesting, keeping the pacing, keeping it on the edge of your seat if possible.
Yeah, because I suppose a book, unlike a film, if you're finding it boring halfway through, you know that it's only another 45 minutes or so, so maybe you might stick with it. But a book, if you find it boring halfway through, you'll probably give up because it's still hours left.
You kind of put it aside, definitely.
Really important to keep it interesting, isn't it?
Yep, that's it. And you have to get it right from the beginning and keep it strong. And it's a challenge. I mean, that's also why you have a first draft, a second draft, and a third draft to make a story and then make it into a readable story in the process. I mean, it's going through some stages of incarnations before it is finished. And, that's really cool to be part of, to work on that.
Yeah. And this book, how long have you been writing and working on it so far?
Well, the planning stages was a few months. So I think from end of February, March, I was planning the world and the different settings, the scenarios, how the world, the techniques work, what kind of cultures are there, who could be my main character, those kind of things. So I'm basically brainstorming, writing, but nothing writing as in it's going to be read, but for myself.
Yeah.
But actually writing the novel, I've started only halfway past last month. So I've been at it like 6 weeks now, approximately.
Wow.
So yeah, but that's easier once you have the plot line all plotted out. You can just follow that lines, and even if you're stuck, if you don't have inspiration, you just skip a step and then you go to a part that you do have inspiration for, and then go back to the other part later. Yeah. So that's if you have a plan, you can continue.
And when you first start to work on your book, do you do it because you have an idea in your head? Or do you just think, I'm going to write a book, and then come up with the idea as you go?
No. I had the idea first, and then I had to convince myself it's good enough to write a book about. Because, I mean, sometimes, I don't know if you have it, but you get weird ideas in your mind and you write it down somewhere and then forget about it, right? And that's, I have an idea. I want to write some book about what if a group of friends, instead of buying a last round before the pub closes, they decide to buy a lottery ticket. They say, if we win, we are going to use this money only to improve the world. So what would they do if they win, right? Would they actually stick to that plan, or would their own self-interest start to guide them? This kind of things. So, I mean, those ideas pop in your mind, and then, all right, put them away.
Yeah. I'm sensing some sort of disagreement between the friends after they win.
Possibly.
Some of them will do the humankind stuff. Others will want to get drunk or whatever. So, yeah.
Possibly. Well, that could be an interesting story. I mean, I haven't written it yet, so feel free, anybody wrestling there. Listening into this or watching it, but I mean, ideas come and go, and this one it sort of stuck. I mean, it came back into my mind, so I decided I have to do something with this, and it helped to be in contact with the publisher right from the start, because we could spar the idea and hear thoughts of an external party as well, to sort of see if it's something worthwhile, and they thought so. So there we are, making it happen.
And being in contact with the publisher right from the start, that's interesting, because I guess most of the time you would pitch the book after it was sort of at a place where you think it's finished. So have you perhaps worked with this publisher before and they are confident enough to know that you're going to be doing a good job?
Well, I think it's partially that the publisher just has good faith in people. But the only way that we worked together was by him commissioning a short story via Fiverr, which is a freelance platform that I work on as well. Mostly for map making, though, but also for short stories. And sort of, he liked the story so much, he thought, all right, how about you write a novel for us? And I thought, I've got an idea. So what do you think? That sort of became a cooperation. But yeah, it's true, as you say. Normally you write a book and you polish it and you think it's as good as ready, and then you start querying agents who start querying publishers, and that's down the road. If you're lucky, you might hitch one. So it's really unorthodox to have one from the beginning when the first draft isn't even done yet. But let's prove that this formula works. So maybe it's easier for other authors as well to have some some guarantees while they write that it's going to be used for something.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's hard for publishers to know who to pick if they're going to be there right from the start, because you could get some terrible people. But then if they've already got a strong body of work, then you can be optimistic about it.
Yeah, for me it was fairly easy because I had some examples that you could read. I had some stories written they could have a look at, so they could get a feel of my writing style. Of course, it's not that as if they have written, I've seen a book from me, like a full-length novel, but they have seen short stories, so that's probably good enough for them.
Yeah.
Now it's for me to prove that they were not wrong.
Yeah. And what is your kind of writing schedule like, if you will? Do you wake up early in the morning and write a set amount of words, or is it more sort of freelance than that?
Waking early in the morning is not my cup of tea. I do because I have for more work, but if I can sleep in, I will do so. So my working hours are, my writing hours are late at night, past 11 o'clock, 9, even to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night. So I stay up too late probably, but that's when I'm most creative. That's when the ideas keep pouring from my fingers, and if you're in the writing zone, then it's difficult to stop. So that's why it gets really exaggerating late. But so I have a day job. I have a family, so a small son as well. He's almost 5 now, so when I'm done with work, then my family is there. So I have to spend some time with them till we put our son to bed. And then, of course, we have to have dinner, have to walk the dog and do the dishes and those kind of things. And then when we have had some quality time, it's time for writing or for map making or anything else that is a side project. But
you never stop then.
Nope. It takes a lot of time, like 2 hours, 3 hours a day. But it's at the end of the day, when everything else is done, when people usually go hang on the sofa and watch Netflix, I do that as well. But and some I say, all right, I'll watch one episode and then I'm going to do some work.
And it's interesting, the writing at the night thing, because I think if I was a writer, I'd probably be the same as you, writing at that time, because I don't really understand writing as soon as someone wakes up in the morning, because I wouldn't be fully awake yet, so I would be writing complete nonsense.
That could be interesting for children's books or like psychedelic novels of how it is to be like an alcoholic or whatever. But in the morning, no, that's not the best time of the day for me. It's probably very, very, I call it begrudging commentary of anything. It's very in the mood for nothing but sleep or coffee.
And you've briefly mentioned your map making and cartography. Is that quite fun to do then?
Oh, absolutely. I've been drawing maps since I was a child. Really, I liked it. I first copied the Risk strategy game board, drawing it, and those kind of things. I started when I was a child. I found it interesting. Found geography interesting. And then it sort of stuck. Did it as a hobby for Dungeons and Dragons for a long time.
Wow.
Then at one point, I sat down and made a very I put a lot of time in making a very nice map for D&D for a campaign I was running then. And I thought, all right, why don't I try to sell it? So I sort of went on a freelancer platform and put it on there for like a very cheap amount, and people actually were interested.
Wow.
And I got so many orders that I had to up the price a few times until it got realistic, and that sort of stuck. So people keep buying maps and I keep making them. And it's very interesting to do. You learn a lot also about different fantasy worlds and different authors who all want a map in their fantasy books. Because, I mean, I don't know if you read fantasy personally, but almost every single book that is in this fantasy genre has a map. And the ones that don't have it probably need one. Because it's if you're talking about fantasy worlds that nobody has a reference for, it's easy to add the reference in there.
And have you drawn a map for your own book?
Several, actually, because as you mentioned, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a world that's constantly changing. So in this world, map makers or people who can write down the lay of the land, they're actually very important. Because if a world constantly changes, you don't know what is where. or
Yeah.
or where the danger might come from. So
Yeah.
map makers in this world are very important. So I'm
Yeah.
sort of patting my own back there, but
Yeah. It's like when they change all the aisles around in the supermarket. You don't know where anything is anymore.
exactly
You have
like
to
that.
relearn it.
Imagine you want to eggs and you're going to where the bread is. That's not that's not going to help anyone.
No. Well, where are we able to check out your book and your cartography if we want to commission you for that?
Yeah, so the cartography part is easy to answer. That's on Fiverr.com.
Yeah.
And if you just type on cartography, I'm one of the people there that's going to pop up in the first few instances that you're looking for. Hopefully a map that appeals to you, because then I'm doing my job right. Else you can try to remember my name, because I use my same name there. So it's Chaim Holtjer. So you can use that, type that in Fiverr, and you can find me. Also for short stories, by the way. But the book, that's going to be available first via Black Harbor Press. I don't know if you're going to link that somewhere, but so they will first publish it under their own banner, and then also sell it via major retailers like Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Like you can buy it online. But firstly, they're going to publish it themselves.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. It's been great having you on.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.